So Dan Perry is the former Europe and Middle East editor at the Associated Press. Good to see you, Dan. Our Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osseran, is with us as well. Hi there, Ariel. So what's happened here, Dan? Because everybody seems to be blaming each other. Basically, the argument seems to be there was not enough prison space to hold all these suspected Hamas fighters and their collaborators.
It kind of seems laughable and Keystone Cops-ish. Clearly, there was a lapse. But I have to think there wasn't enough determination in the system to keep this guy incarcerated. It's politically potent because it has to do with the narrative that says that Shifa Hospital is a fake hospital. And in particular, the intel that came out recently that the hostages, many of them, if not most of them, were taken there, and some may have been killed there. So Shifa Hospital is a highly tendentious issue. And we don't really know to what degree he had been fully debriefed and interrogated and they were done with him, or whether there's any legal action to be taken against him. But it doesn't look good when you have such confusion and mutual recriminations. And
Ariel, Dan's right, isn't he? The Al-Shifa Hospital has featured prominently in this war, going right back to October. Remember the IDF spokesman releasing those CGI photographs of what he said was a Hamas control center under Al-Shifa. We know that hostages were there. We've seen the images. So a lot of people in Israel are scratching their heads today saying what's happened.
More than that, the Shifa Hospital has been proven by Israel 3 separate instances since the start of the war. Israel's operated there, uncovering more and more evidence that indicates that it was used as a terror hub for Hamas and Hamas commanders.
The head of the hospital currently clearly doesn't pose that much of a danger at the hospital because the hospital is no longer being used for terror activity. And one gets the sense that there's confusion among the critics between the idea of an arrest as something punitive and judicial versus the idea of an arrest as something aimed at gathering intelligence. I believe the Shin Bet that they basically had completed what they wanted to do with him. So a lot of it seems political, and I think it probably attaches to what we see as a wider issue between the political echelon and the security echelon. The political echelon looking to blame the latter, not just for the breakdowns of October 7th, but for all the failures since then. I think we need to also take into account that Shifa Hospital, even though we're quite certain it really did serve terrorist activity, and in particular was used to store weaponry and to keep hostages after October 7th, it's also, alongside that, a legitimate hospital, indeed the most important one in Gaza, a territory that needs hospitals right now. So this really is sort of Exhibit A in Israel's challenge in dealing with Gaza, when you have a leadership in Gaza that would use a facility so critically important in this way, which, by the way, under international law, renders a legitimate military target. This is reflective of the absolute craziness.
Prime Minister Netanyahu was quoted saying a short while ago that Israel is, quote, making progress towards ending the phase of the destruction of Hamas, and we will have to target its remains going forward. This is alongside other statements that Israel is approaching the end of phase 2 to move to phase 3. Phase 2 is what we've seen now. Phase 3 is what we know in terms of IDF activity in the West Bank, of daily or nightly raids based on precise intelligence. That appears to be the format that the IDF is transitioning in the Gaza Strip, but there's still some last tactical maneuvers in Khan Yunis and Rafah.
Right, because Dan Perry, here we are, we're talking once again about Shajaiya, we're talking again about Khan Yunis. I mean, are we looking now at these intelligence-led raids on areas of Gaza similar to what we've seen in the West Bank now for many years?
Well, there's one big difference, which is that you don't have the Palestinian Authority there to more or less do the daily grunt work. So given that, this is starting to look like a permanent forever war type of insurgency operation.
Erdogan was one of the fiercest critics of Bashar al-Assad, wasn't he? Right back when Assad began murdering his own people. What has changed? Why is he now seeking to
The 7th of October, the Turkish Foreign Ministry unfortunately adopted a very anti-Israel stance, and they would like to be a key player in Lebanon. And to become a key player in Lebanon, they first have to mend their fences with the Syrians and then with Hezbollah, and maybe even they will be trying to get a key role in the peacekeeping force UNIFIL. They may increase their presence in the peacekeeping force so that they would be acting as a shield for the Lebanese, for the Hezbollah.
Dan Perry, is this something Israel should be worried about? Two of its biggest enemies, Erdogan's Turkey and Assad's Syria, coming together and joining forces?
I think so, and of course Israel does not want Turkey to become a major player in Lebanon. Israel rather wants Lebanon to find a way to impose and implement 1701, which pulls Hezbollah back from the border. It's extremely unlikely Turkey, I think, would be a positive player towards that outcome, which is really the only outcome I can see that will prevent a conflagration in the north.
And of course, we have to talk about the United States in all of this. We've just seen a somewhat shocking performance by the leader of the free world, US President Joe Biden, in that debate with Donald Trump last week. I mean, what message does that send to strong men like Erdogan?
I got to say this: if Trump returns to power and brings about a world where values are not a factor and everything is transactionalism, on top of which Trump clearly has great sympathy for dictators and despots and antipathy towards America's allies.
But Trump aside, Trump's not in power. Even
that
without
encourages.
Trump, Joe Biden's in power for now.
That will encourage
how will that performance
authoritarians. Look, I think when America looks weak this way, the axis of evil, for lack of a better word, is emboldened. And it creates a more unpredictable situation where America is not seen as likely to take significant, speedy action. On the other hand, Biden has been pretty good about surrounding himself with fairly capable deputies. And so realistically, America is not incapacitated. But the debate performance certainly does make it look like Biden is, and that's a problem.
Dan, I think you're going to enjoy this next story. The Trump Tower is coming to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia real estate firm Dara Global has announced plans for a joint project with the former US president's firm Trump Global. It's currently run by his son. They'll be building in the city of Jeddah.
This Trump Tower project is actually part of an offensive by Donald Trump and his clan, including, as you said, his son Eric, including Jared Kushner as well, to expand business in the Middle East. And talking of Jared Kushner, today's project is made possible thanks to an investment fund that he created a few years ago after leaving the White House as an advisor to Donald Trump. And this fund exists thanks to Saudi Arabia. In this sort of exchange of courtesies, the Saudis have put on the table $2 of the $3 billion that this fund has today. And besides, the future of Kushner as an investor will rely even more on the Gulf countries, since with the possible and even probable addition of an Emirati and Qatari money, this fund will reach around $7 billion. And in this massive money, we've learned some time ago that some will go into the pockets of Israeli startups.
Bastien Bory in Dubai, thank you very much. Dan Perry.
Well, if Trump wins, he can be expected to reverse or try to reverse most of Biden's policies, but one that I think he'll try to maintain is to organize an extension of the Abraham Accords to add Saudi Arabia. And so to the extent that Trump and Saudi Arabia are simpatico at this point, the Trump clan, as your reporter put it, in Saudi Arabia, that is actually promising. Saudi indirect investment in Israel is promising. So skepticism aside, and some skepticism and cynicism even is warranted about the Trump clan's business plans around the world, even as he seems set maybe to come back to power. I would put this in the good things column.
All right, let's end on a rare, bright note then. Dan Perry, Tan Cohen, Yana Rochak, and our very own Ariel Lassaran. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To you all. Do stay with us here on I24 News. We'll have another update for you shortly. Goodbye.